Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Trisotech webinar on data validation in a low-code environment using the Trisotech Digital Enterprise Suite. My name is Simon. I'm the R&D lead at Trisotech, and I'm joined today by Melanie. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Simon.
So Melanie is our modeling lead here at Trisotech. So today we're going to talk about data validation for low-code services that we are creating using the DMN and BPMN standard. We're going to look a little bit over the pros and cons of different data validation methods, and we'll also look at how Trisotech implements different data validation strategies and different at the data type level as well. So for those of you that are joining today and have no idea who Trisotech is or what we offer, quick introduction. For those of you that know what we're doing, it's not going to take long. So Trisotech offers a modeling and automation suite that's called the Trisotech Digital Enterprise Suite. So at the modeling level, we implement a lot of the more business-oriented OMG standards, such as BPMN, CMMN, and DMN, to model workflow cases and decisions. And we take those models and automate them by adding low-code attributes on top of those models, and they become services that we can deploy onto our automation platform. And basically today with Melanie and me, well, I'm mostly going to be sitting back and listening to Melanie, but we're going to discuss is the data validation aspect of creating those services. So Melanie, if you want to take over and show us a little bit like what the problem statement is, what's actually happening with data validation currently in the market, and how we tackle that problem in different ways.
Of course. So today the demo will mostly focus on the decision modeler. So the one that is using the DMN standard to write decision logic. And I'm also going to use a little bit the BPMN or the workflow modeler at the end of the presentation.
Good.
I'm sorry about that. So the first question is how people are dealing with data right now in their decision logic models in DMN. Well, most of the time they will add some extra logic, extra decision, or extra field expression. Field being the friendly enough expression language of DMN. So it's the programmation language for business user using BPMN that is executable.
And basically, we could probably say that field is a little bit the equivalent of what the language in Excel is for creating like cell formulas and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice analogy. So most of the time, a user that can deal with expression in Excel can deal with expression in DMN, and we know that user can do some really impressive stuff in Excel. So
Yeah.
the same thing can be done in DMN. So it's really something done for the business user. It's powerful, but with great power come great responsibility. So sometimes you put too much inside your models and you try to cover all cases. So the model gets really, really complex. Or you can also try to fix the data. So if something might be wrong, you might put some condition around it to try to fix it when possible, or just fail the decision. Or in other cases, it's just not dealt with at all. So the user enters some data to the service, it fails for some reason, and it's hard for the end user to figure out what went wrong. For the people that actually wrote the model, when you are testing it, it might be easier to figure out what's wrong and know what you did. But when it's the end user that's not aware of the complexity behind the form that is filling, then it gets really cryptic, the error message that it gets.
Good.
So let's see an example of a model with some of those strategies in it.
All right, so we're jumping right in the tool. No more slides.
No more slide for now.
All right.
So this is our decision modeler. So
That
the model
we
that
are
we
not
have.
seeing now.
Oh, you're not? Oh, I'm so
I'm
sorry
guessing
about
you shared just the presentation and
that.
that's your screen. That's why it's a live demo. Otherwise, it would not be a live demo. I mean,
Okay, you should see it now.
all right.
With
Yeah,
the
I can see it, and everybody else as well.
Okay, so take two. So here's the decision model that we have. So I took a really simple example so everyone could follow me. So it's a time of request, something that we all need to do from time to time. So there's a little bit of technical stuff around it. Here we have data connected to a data store. So this is where I'm going to get how many days of vacation an employee has left. And here's is business knowledge model calling a REST API to know the working days between 2 days, because we know that you cannot just do a diff of the days because you don't count the weekends in your vacation. So this is just a little service to calculate that. So if we look here at remaining days, that is the decision that extract the data from the data store. So it checks if it can find the employee right there. And if it can find the employee with the ID provided, then it's going to return its day off count. Otherwise, it's going to return null because the employee wasn't found. And if we look here at the decision that is invoking the service to calculate the working days, then this thing looks a bit complicated, but this is the invocation actually that calls the service, and there's a bunch of data returned by it, so we just extract the total days. Now, the first time that I tried out the service, just for fun, I reversed the start and the end date just to see what it would do, and it failed with a bad request. So that's the error that I got. So I did the strategy of fixing the data here. So I've added 2 lines here only to put the start and end date in the correct order and pass them to the service. So let's see how it runs just like that.
So basically, you're putting in a lot of validation code alongside your business logic to make this
exactly
work, right?
So let's just run it with no data at all just to see how it will do. Oh, big error message telling me that before the parameter it cannot be null, blah blah blah. And that is because the logic I've added, I used an after and before function, this get null, and it doesn't work. So okay, I know, oh, okay, I forgot to put the date, and for an end user, this message doesn't tell anything. So now we're gonna look at the actual decision to determine if the employee may or may not get its day off. So here there's an if then else, just to check if we actually found the employee with the ID, because it could be a wrong ID. So the first part here and there, it's just to deal with that. And in the middle here, there's a standard decision table, where we decide if we can allow the vacation. So I've created 3 categories of day off. So sick days, family day, and vacation. And for the sake of the example, let's say that the family day, we need a justification to get it. So maybe some HR will disagree with that, but just to have some constraint on that, let's see, we must provide a justification. So that line right there is actually those 2 lines checks if the time of justification length is greater than is equal to 0, then we reject that because the justification wasn't provided, and we tell family days require a justification. And if not, we say that it could require a manual approbation. So this is another thing that's there just to check if the actual data was provided. So there's like 3 things that are validated in that model. So the justification, the start and end date, we don't check for if all the data is there, so we get failure, and we have the null check there.
So that would be something that people would come up with naturally, like having those validation a little bit everywhere in the model.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of
when you're programming, you're trying to deal with everything and make sure that it will work. But it's a bit complex, and we kind of lose the actual logic. What matters here is, can the employee have his day off or not? This is the business logic. All the other stuff, it's noise on the line, if you wish. So that's why Trisotech has the digital modeling suite as what we call enhanced data validation. So you can write on your data type that I didn't show you, but I'm going to show it to you on the next demo. So the time of request, it's actually a complex type with many fields. And on each of them, you can put some expression. So there's 3 predefined rules, if you wish, that you can all use that are built in. So range, that works with number, date, and time. Enumeration, that can work on all data type, and not null. So the not null would be the way to make sure that some data was put in. And what really gives all the power to that is you can actually just put an expression, and that expression can use the full power of fill. You'll get an editor with autocompletion as in any other place in the tool where we can you enter field expression. And you can also check with the values of the previous field to determine if a value is valid or not. You can even have more than one expression. You can have a range plus 1, 2, or 3 expression if you need to. They are combined with an and, meaning that each of them must be meant for the entry to be valid. The advantage of breaking that in many smaller rules or smaller expression is that each of them may have its own validation message. So this is where you can really guide the user to tell him, okay, you did that wrong. So the end user can fix properly the data and submit the form again. There's also default validation message that will be provided by the Digital Enterprise Suite if you didn't enter anything. There's also a validation code there. So this is more to enter some code that is more computer ready or more friendly computer in case you want to integrate with an API. So this is easier to compare than a validation message target to user. One of the main advantages of doing all of that in the data type, it's out of your model decision logic, and it will fail fast, meaning that as soon as the users submit the data, it is going to get validated and it won't go any further. So no call to any services will be done if the data isn't valid. So we save time, we save processing power. When you do the data validation level, there's actually 3 levels available in the suite. So you can put it to none, meaning that all the rules are ignored. You can put it to external data entry, meaning that anytime the user enters some data through your service, then it's going to get validated against the rules you've set. Or you can set it to always. So this means that each time that decision move from one activity to another, being a task or a decision, it is going to get validated. So this can be set in the preference for testing, and each service can be deployed with its own preference. I'd say that when you're creating the model, you should set it to always. So you know if any decision is messing up with your data, you can fix it, and you'll be able to better debug everything.
And it will help you catch as well when you mistype things.
So. Oh yeah, of course, because it happens. So yeah, so once everything is done and you've tested your model and you know it's ready for production, it is better to set it to external data entry and trust the data that flows between tasks. This is going to save some processing power basically, and should be used when you're sure your model is ready. So let's see with that new knowledge how we can improve time of request. So I'm gonna save a copy of that. And I'm gonna start by showing you the actual time of request data. So right now we have employee ID, from, to, which are the from and the to date, the type that was used in the decision logic, and the justification. So the first thing we'll do is just make everything mandatory. That way it will not continue if something is missing. Won't put any custom message for that, just so you don't look at me typing for too long. here we have already one constraint that was set before, or a rule, a validation rule, is that the type has only 3 possible values. So this is what we call enumeration. So it already validates against that. If you want to make that field optional, then you will click the allow null right there. Otherwise, null is not accepted in that iteration. And finally, the justification, I won't put a not null there because it's not always required. So let's start with that. And let's test the model again. So now I don't put anything, I submit. And what did I forget? I forget to check the preference. So this is what I've mentioned to you, the data type validation. So you can put it to none, external data tree, or always. It was set to none, so it just behaves as before. And now we get the error messages. So each of the field was marked as required. So I've got the error message that is the default one from the DES with some marker to tell me that this is not valid.
If it's already an improvement, you can add some.
It's already an improvement to turn it off. So this is the first step. It won't go through. It's the first part. So now what can we do about the date to remove that complex thing? So let's do something more with the 2 here. So I'm going to add an expression, and I'm going to say that after, so here I'm going to use a question mark being the current field. If you've used decision table, this will look familiar. This is how you reference the input in a decision table too. And what you can put in the expression is basically the same thing that input in decision table, because it's expression that must resolve to true or false. So I'm going to say that after that 2, the current field must be after from or equal to from to have just one day of vacation. I'm going to put some code to after from and to date must be after the from date. We have got a first thing. So let's see how that works. So I'll set the 15, and here I set the 8th of June. Just submit that. And there it goes. My custom message is there with, in parentheses, the code that I've put. So this is debug mode. So we show you the code in the test form. So this is perfect. So now the other thing that we wanted to change is to get rid of that line in the decision table about the validation. So let's put an expression here as well. And now I'm going to reuse the value of family day. If type is family day, then this must not be null. And, oh, sorry, the string length of this, let's say greater than 5. So we have a little something, and it's an actual value.
You didn't put an else in there, but
oh yeah, you're right.
So basically, you don't want me to just type a in there. So you want at least 5 characters.
Exactly, to have some really, just not to get rid of the field. You need to think about something to write.
But what if I put a 6 times?
Yeah, you could.
Okay, all right. Just try.
I won't use AI to check if you wrote sentences there. Mm-hmm. So it needs to return a Boolean. So without the else, Simon was right, it would have failed. So if it's not family day, then we don't care. We say that the field is valid, and we return true. So we could put a code, family day, and when the type is family day, notification must be provided. And there we go. So let's try that again. Let's put family day and submit. And I've got the error message. If I put vacation and submit, then I don't get it. So now that this works, this means that we can go here, get rid of those two lines, simply use time of request from and our time of request to. Way simpler.
This looks much better.
This looks way better. And here, what we can do is get rid of that line because we know it's not going to be empty. And we can get rid of that whole column because it was its only purpose to check for that. So now we have the real thing.
Again, much better.
We want to know that family day requires approbation. Sick days, we just approve them by default. And vacation, we check the remaining days. So way simpler. Oversimplify, of course. There might be other things to check in a real context, but the validation is gone. So time is flying fast. So the next thing I'm going to check is turning the model into a service. So when you do that, the actual API that's going to be created will return 400 code bad request if a validation rule fails. So on those errors, you're going to get a message, a code, and a location. So the message is either the one you set or the default one from the DS. The code is the one that you set. If you don't set anything, you won't get a code. And the location, it's basically the name of the entry that failed plus the path. So for example, time of request dot from to say that the from was invalid. Those will only return if you set the validation to always or external. Otherwise, they won't be there. So let's deploy our own service.
So what you're going to do is you're going to take this model and deploy it to our automation suite. This will create a full REST API for this to be used, and we're going to show how the validation can also leverage that.
Exactly. So as I said in my presentation, since it's for, let's say, production, I'm going to put it to external data entry, and I'm going to, what did I forget?
You forgot to get the right on this instance on anything to deploy on. So give me a few seconds.
Oh my God.
Because you changed where you did the demo.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's live. I mean, that's why it's fun. So just refresh. I gave you access to...
I'm going to do that again. Okay, now I can deploy. Okay, so let's publish it.
Yeah. So...
Thank you, Simon.
For those of you that doubt that this is not pre-recorded.
So let's have a quick look at the REST API that was created for that. So as I mentioned, here are the request body that we need, employee ID, from, to, type, and justification. And at the end here, we have the 400 that will return the code, message, and location. It's an array because it's going to return one for each of the validation rule that failed. So now let's try it in, it's less pretty on demo. So let's put an employee ID of 1. Let's put from and 2 just to be, and family day to get all of them at once. So I got my 2 messages the same, almost the same than on the test. The only difference is that I don't have the code there because it's for end user and they don't care about that code. It's really for API integration. So just to show you that it actually it can go through. I'm gonna put that in the right order to the 29 notification. And it's rejected because that employee only had 1 day left and I've requested for 6 days. So this is an actual thing that went through correctly. So
no vacation for you, Melanie. Sorry.
No vacation for me.
Yeah, you have to keep on working.
So I'm going to go over quickly to how this can be used in a workflow too. So everything that I've shown about data type validation works in the decision case, workflow, and the knowledge entity. So they can be set there. So any data type any model that supports data type. If you reuse those data types through the graph, for the one that are familiar with our suite, then all the rules will follow. When you execute workflow or case, all the rules with the same level can be applied. And actually, there's some validation that I could not get rid in my decision model and our beta suite in workflow. So I'm going to show you how we can do that.
While Melanie is switching context, if anyone has questions, feel free to send them in the chat. We'll take questions after we're done with the webinar. So please submit your questions if you have any.
Yes, then it will be a pleasure to answer them. So here is a new version of the message, slightly simplified. So here I removed everything about the data store because this was adding a lot of complexity to my decision logic. So I expect now simply the remaining days to come here. So that means that I can get rid here of the if, then else that was there. I just have the logic now. But I still need what I had there before. So I'm going to use a process to do that instead of a decision. Because processes are built to call services, do branching. That's what they're built for. So here now I fetch the employee data here in a script task in the same data store than before. And there's a gateway here that will fail if the employee is not found. So again, we fail fast, we stop all the decision, and we just say that wrong ID is entered. Then we call our logic with the parameter. And what is a bit different in decision in workflow is that we have user tasks. So those two can have rules set to them. So I've had a small rules to the response saying that reason must be provided if the day off is rejected. So it's just really similar to what I did with vacation. So I'm going to quickly deploy that now that I can. I'm going to use external data entry again.
You need to select your identity.
My identity right there, working days. And now we are ready.
While you're doing that, basically what you've done is you took the fetching of the data and basically checking if the person exists part of the decision that was more of a workflow of, okay, I'm receiving data, I need to validate that prior to actually doing the decision logic. It was not necessarily part of the decision logic, but you had it in your decision model. And this is something we often see as a, not necessarily a problem, but as something that people will do in their decision models. They're going to put a lot of those validation rules in where they're better suited to be validated before invoking that, and it makes the decision model much more easier to read.
And from a user point of view, like the end user, it's the same form. It doesn't matter the logic behind for the end user. So you get the exact same result from an end user point of view. So it's really a matter of maintaining your stuff as a developer and making sure that everything is fine. So I'm just going to quickly put that as a valid stuff. Oh, I didn't use the family day. Just wanted to have.
So while you're filling that in, again, just a reminder, this recording will also be available on the Trisotech website after. So if you want to share it with other people, please feel free to do that.
So here I am in my user task. So I have all the context of the employee that's requesting a day off, what day, why, and how many days off he has. So if I just try to submit it like that, I'm going to say rejected. I didn't put anything. So when time off is rejected, a reason must be provided. So I have the error message on the user task as well in workflow.
So we can do that at all of the steps of the workflow when someone enters new data into the process.
Exactly. So this is a really powerful tool that can be used in the 3 modelers that are executable. So it's really a nice addition and something to keep in mind when you model. Do the right thing at the right place.
So Melanie, I have a good news and a bad news, and you decide which is which. we're at about that time, and I don't have questions from the audience. So I, I guess whatever you said was really clear. So just to wrap up a little bit on what we discussed today, we've showed some basic ways or pitfalls that we are seeing. People having a lot of validation code in their decision logic, and we showed different patterns on how we can extract them to put them in the data type validation, but also moving them as part of a workflow that will take care of some of the more advanced or the more procedural validation aspects.
Yeah, because what I forgot to mention too is that the data validation doesn't have access to the context of the whole execution, only to the value of its own data type. So you cannot do everything in that.
Excellent. So thank you very much, Melanie. I did not receive any question while doing the conclusion. So I guess have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Bye.